Welcome back. Today we're diving into a seriously fascinating explainer based on the Gospel of John. We're going to look at this incredibly powerful intersection of theology and psychology. Specifically, we'll be exploring how the text frames policing absolute faith in God, really trusting Him as the ultimate author of our lives, as the absolute greatest psychological key to discovering true courage. If you've ever felt totally overwhelmed by the pressure of the unknown, well, this analysis of the source material is going to completely reframe how you look at your future. Let's get right into it.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll be looking at the fear of the unknown, God's specific plan and timing, the psychology of certainty, 3 practical steps to peace, which we're going to focus heavily on today, and finally, discovering true freedom and faith.
So, let's start off with section 1, the fear of the unknown, and that intense pressure we feel about an unwritten future.
Listen, we all know the deep psychological pain of the unknown. Think about those nights where you're just staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m., agonizing over whether you're going to make the right choices, or terrified that your future might just fall apart. It is a really heavy burden to carry. But the text poses this radical, game-changing question. What if that crushing pressure to write your own perfect life was actually never on your shoulders to begin with? What if the script is literally already written? This is the major conceptual shift of our source material today. For so many of us, reality just feels like this exhausting, frantic scramble. We're desperately trying to micromanage every single variable, trying to write a story that, frankly, we just don't have the perspective to write. But the alternative the text presents offers this profound mental relief. It's about stepping down out of that writer's chair and placing your complete, absolute faith in God, resting easy in the knowledge that the true author already has the pen in his hand. Moving right along to section 2, let's talk about God's plan and timing, specifically looking at Jesus and the concept of the appointed hour. The explainer uses the life of Jesus as the ultimate case study for what living on a divine timeline actually looks like in practice. The text shows us that he wasn't just walking around reacting to random accidents, not at all. He lived according to a highly precise divine script. Early on, at a wedding in Cana, he calmly notes that his time hasn't come yet. Later, in the temple, an angry crowd tries to arrest him, but they physically can't do it because, as the text explicitly notes, his hour had not yet come. He even orchestrated his final moments on the cross, specifically saying, "I am thirsty," simply to fulfill the scripture. According to the gospel, every single moment was perfectly timed. Because Jesus had this unshakable, absolute faith in God's plan, he knew exactly who was going to betray him, he knew exactly what was coming, and yet he still stepped forward without even a hint of panic. For him, the future wasn't some looming, terrifying threat of randomness. It was literally a fulfilled promise that was just waiting to happen. That brings us to section 3. Let's dig into the psychology of certainty and how it helps us overcome being stuck in survival mode. Shifting from the theological side over to the psychological side, think about what happens when we believe the future is totally random and 100% up to us. We literally trap ourselves in a high cortisol survival mode. It shows up as chronic performance anxiety, that terrifying underlying belief that you have to save yourself. But the text implies that by actively trusting in God's blueprint, we can shift entirely out of that panic and into a state of secure trust. It's the realization that you are firmly held by the Father's care, which biologically and psychologically replaces all that panic with a really deep peace. Our source material highlights this incredible verse where Jesus essentially drops a massive spoiler alert for life. He outright confers that yes, struggles are definitely inevitable, but then he adds, "Be brave, I have defeated the world." The huge takeaway here is that if you have faith in God, the ultimate victory is already a guaranteed certainty. So whatever struggle you happen to be facing right now, it is not the end of your story. It is just a scene somewhere in the middle of a script that absolutely ends in triumph. All right, section 4. Now, this is where we really need to focus our attention today, the 3 practical steps to peace. We are going to concentrate heavily on these 3 specific practical tips from the text because they all hinge on one totally crucial idea, having active faith in God. Let's really zero in on these. So tip number 1 from the source, respect your hour. The text proposes that just like Jesus had a specific appointed hour, you and I have specific seasons designed entirely by God. The real-world application of your faith here means that if certain doors aren't opening for you or things just aren't happening yet, you have got to stop trying to force them. You have to stop the frantic rush. True faith in God means actively aligning yourself with the pace of the divine gardener. Jesus actually asked this great rhetorical question. A day has 12 hours, doesn't it?
The deep psychological lesson the source draws from that is simple. You have to trust that there is exactly enough time for what God has written for you. Living with faith in God means totally trusting His pacing. He prunes the branches and He grows the fruit in His own perfect time, not ours. And once you truly internalize and believe that, the exhausting anxiety of feeling like you're running out of time just completely vanishes.
Moving to our second point of focus, tip number 2, lean on the finished work. This centers right on Jesus' final words on the cross, "It is finished." Think about the sheer mental relief of that statement based on this framework. Psychologically speaking, the text frames this as absolute proof that the heavy lifting regarding your worth, your salvation, and your ultimate value to God, it's already completely done. When you're just totally burnt out and feeling inadequate, remind yourself of this. Without faith, our natural human default is to frantically work for victory, right? We're desperate to prove to everyone around us that we're good enough. But with faith in God, the script text declares you operate from a place of already won victory. The script says you are God's child simply because you believe. You don't have to go out and earn it today. You literally just get to rest in it. And that completely revolutionizes how you show up in your daily life.
And that rolls us perfectly into our third and final practical tip from the text focus on today. Relinquish the need for human praise. The source material argues that when your faith is totally anchored in God and you know His approval is your ultimate, guaranteed mark, something amazing happens to your psychology. You instantly stop being a slave to the totally unpredictable, fickle opinions of everyone else. Jesus modeled this perfectly in the text. He plainly stated, "I am not looking for human praise." Having true faith in God's certain future sets you completely free. It means you can speak the truth, you can act with radical love, and you can relentlessly pursue your purpose, completely regardless of what your earthly audience thinks. Their applause or their criticism, it just doesn't dictate your worth anymore. Because according to this divine blueprint, the actual author of the universe has already approved of you. Finally, let's head into section 5 and look at freedom in faith and the ultimate purpose of this whole story. When we zoom out and ask why all this was even written down, the source material answers us directly. It was written specifically so that you might believe, and through that faith, find true life. Now, sometimes people get nervous. They fear that a divine plan means they're just trapped in some pre-written cage. But the core message of the text is the exact opposite. God's script is a safety net, not a cage. The entire premise is that you are wonderfully, totally free from the crushing weight of having to author your own salvation. You just have to faithfully follow the light. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on today. Knowing what we've just covered from the text about God's perfect timing and His already finished work, will you finally put the pen down? Will you stop frantically trying to write the script of your own life and instead let this truth set you completely free? Be brave today. Because the gospel's ultimate promise is that when you place your faith entirely in the ultimate author, the ending is vastly better than anything you could ever possibly write yourself.